Alright guys, in 1.1.5b, the simulation portion, you're going to be asked with making those same circuits, but with the software simulation Multisim. So let's launch that. I'm just going to type in Multisim down here. Yours is Multisim 14. It'll take a minute to load. And you'll remember we did use this last year, but very briefly, and it was roughly 11 months ago. So Multisim is the standard industry standard program that is used for like electrical engineering and all that good stuff. So it is extremely powerful. We'll dive into a whole lot bit more of the power later, but it goes well beyond what we even do in the scope of this course, even though we use it all year long. Right now we're just touching the basics of it. So if yours looks like this, good. If not, you're going to give it a right click and you can change the size of your paper by going to workspace and literally changing the size of your paper. And I think somewhere in there, there on the workspace, show grid gives you that those dots as well. I'm going to leave mine as just a 8.5 by 11. That should work okay for right now. Heck, let's just show you. I'm going to make it a D size because I'm not going to print them out anyways. Apply, it makes it bigger. Say OK. So now I have this big sheet. If I scroll my mouse button, my middle mouse button, it zooms in and out. That's helpful. If I click my middle mouse button, I can pan. So it works a lot like Inventor in that respect. Let's take a look and see what we're supposed to be making. So we're supposed to be making a circuit with 2 resistors, a 220 ohm and a 470 ohm, and we're going to put some meters on it. So let's just find our stuff. Well, we're going to need a source, and over here on our left hand side there are a bunch of little buttons. There's a source button, so let's try that one. We're going to need a power source, so I'm selecting that, and I'm going to use some DC power, and you can see that looks like the positive and negative terminals of a battery that we draw out. Click OK, and it placed that one out there. I just clicked out there. I'm also going to need a ground. We always need a ground in Multisim. It's not going to let us run without a ground. You always have a ground anyways. It's just that you need an extra one here. I'm going to need some resistors. I need a resistor value. So let me close this window, and you see that this next little one looks like a resistor. If I click it, I'm placing any basic component. There's all sorts of little basic components in here. One of those is labeled resistor. So I could search, I think one was supposed to be 220, and find that 220 ohm resistor, but it really doesn't matter. I'm just going to click OK, and it's going to place a resistor out there. And I'm going to click OK again, and I'm going to place another one and do that. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I want to arrange this in a more intelligent manner. I'm going to right click, or I'm going to highlight that one, and I'm going to hit Control R. I could alternatively right click and rotate them, but Control R is just going to rotate it. And then to complete my circuit, if I just click on the end of each one of these things, just click once, it's going to start drawing a wire. And so I can really quickly draw out a circuit here. And I'm going to connect up my ground. So here I'm going to go from the positive side through my 2 resistors and back around. I'm going to right click and show my properties because I don't see any values on any of this stuff, so that's got to be somewhere in my sheet visibility settings. If I check values, it's going to, I think, give me the correct things. So those were 768 ohm resistors, which that's very specific, but we wanted, I believe, at 220. So I just double clicked on that 768. It's going to pull it up into the value tab of there, and I just changed that to 220. I think the other one was 470, so we'll just double click on that, type in a 470. There we go. I did not check and see what the voltage level was on that. 12 volts. So we're all good. We can kind of move things around. We could easily drag some wires if we click and drag, move some stuff around. But now we want to take some readings of this. So that we're going to need some measurements, some kind of like these are probes, but we're going to put these components in here. So I'm going to right click. I'm going to right click while I'm on the bar up here at the top, and I'm going to look for measurement components. And mine appeared right here. If I go to lock toolbars, should be able to drag them out. Yours are probably just going to appear out in space like that. You can just drag them in here, and you see it starts to, well, it's freaking out on me a little bit, but it starts to place them in the toolbar, and when I let go, it finds a space for that. Once you've found a space that you like, that is comfortable for you, you can lock your toolbar so it doesn't move anymore. So there's 8, looks like 9, 13 different things here. The first 4 are ammeters, so that's like the multimeter when we're reading amps. Then we have just these probes, which are good for just lighting up when they've got power to them. And then we have voltmeters, so that's like reading volts. You won't have one for reading resistance in Multisim. So you'll notice that when I pull one of these out, I'm going to place it right here. It has a plus and a minus, so you have to make sure it's going the correct direction. I'm just going to connect this up in parallel, and then I'm going to highlight that area and delete out that portion of wire. Because remember, when you're reading current, you have to read in line. You have to take and make sure that you pass every single electron that you want to read through that ammeter. Now for our voltmeter, so we're going to take the voltage drop across each of these resistors. We again have to pay attention to those positive, negative. That's why there's 4 of each of these. Positive is going to be the left on this one, so I'm just going to select right here and draw in. And remember, when we do voltmeter, when we're measuring volts, we're kind of putting ourselves in parallel with that. So you do want to be able to kind of bypass that, because what's happening is there's a known resistance value in there, and it will read that voltage drop across that resistor more accurately like that. There's a vertical one, so I could choose the vertical one, make sure again you have the correct one, and again just connect that in parallel around your resistor, just like you would with your meter. And you see nothing is lighting up at all. But if I click my simulate button, this green button right here, it should take a second, and I'm getting, there we go. And I'm getting some values that should make some sense. I have 0.017 amps, or milliamps, 17 milliamps, and I have 3.86 volts of drop, and then 8.1 volts of drop, which add up to 12. So that makes sense for proving Kirchhoff's law there. These little notes in here of 10 mega ohms and of a tiny resistance value. So these heavy, big resistance values and these tiny resistance values help. That's actually what's happening inside of that multimeter. It's happening inside of your multimeter when you're using it, but we can kind of ignore them. That's actually how it works. It knows that it's got, what is that, 10 million ohms in parallel right there, and it can do the math about what's going around through the other ones to give you this. And it's got just some very tiny, what is that, 9 nano ohms of resistance through here, so it's not removing really any current, but it's able to tell us how much current is going through there. So those are the things that you're going to need for this assignment. I think you can handle that. Make sure that you hit the stop button in between. If you don't hit that stop button, you're not able to add any more to it. I hope that helps you. This is just the very tip of the iceberg as far as Multisim is concerned. We'll definitely explore much more going forward.